The battlefield was quiet now, after years of fighting between humans and the alien race called the Zelyar. Both sides were tired. So, a strange message came from the Zelyar High Council. We offer peace and a gift. That gift arrived. In a silver shuttle, landing in the center of the burned valley where human forces were camped. Soldiers gathered, guns ready, unsure of what to expect. From the shuttle's ramp, single figure walked out. It was a girl, no. Not just any girl. She was young, maybe 19 or 20 in human years, with silver skin that shimmered like the moon. Her long white hair fell over her shoulders, and glowing blue eyes stared straight ahead. Around her neck was a heavy iron collar. Her hands were chained. She did not cry. She did not speak. She only stood and waited. Who is she? A soldier asked. Then came the message, delivered through a drone. This is Princess Lizari of the Zelyari royal line. She is yours now. Do with her as you wish. Inside the command tent, King Darien sat in silence. He had once been just a soldier, but after victories across many planets, he was now the leader of the human territories in this sector. War had made him strong, but also tired. His generals argued. This is a trap. They sent her to kill you. No, she's a symbol. They're surrendering. Darien raised a hand, silencing them all. She's a child, he said quietly. She's not human. General Kale growled. That thing has alien blood. For all we know, she has weapons inside her. Darien stood and walked outside. Soldiers stepped back as he approached the girl. Her chains rattled softly in the wind. Her eyes were calm. No fear, no hate. You are Princess Lizari? Darien asked. She nodded once. Why did they send you? They said, I was too soft. Too weak to lead, she said in a quiet voice. They sent me here. To die, his jaw clenched. You're a prisoner. I am a gift. Darien stared at her for a long time. Then, to the shock of everyone, he said, remove her chains. That night, tension spread across the camp like fire. Some soldiers were angry. Others were afraid. The idea of keeping the alien princess alive, especially under their king's protection, felt dangerous. She's the enemy, many shouted. She's just a girl, others whispered. In his private tent, Darien watched Lizari as she sat quietly in the corner. She did not eat much. She did not speak unless spoken to. She kept her hands folded in her lap and her eyes low, but something in her posture. It wasn't defeat. It was something else. Like quiet strength hiding behind silence, suddenly a guard rushed in. Your Majesty, she's missing. Darien stood at once and stormed out. They found her near the edge of the camp, kneeling in the dirt, holding a sharp piece of metal, pointed at her own chest. Stop, Darien shouted. Lysari looked up, her face wet with tears. I don't want to bring danger to your people. If I die, maybe your people will be safe. He walked slowly to her, voice low. You don't need to die. I was born to be used, then thrown away, she whispered. But you speak to me like I matter. Darien gently took the blade from her hands. You do matter. Later, as Lizari slept under a guard's watch, Darien called his closest advisor. She's not just a gift. She's a message. They didn't just give up a princess, they wanted her dead. You think her own people betrayed her? The advisor asked. Darien nodded. And I think we've been fighting the wrong enemy. By morning, word had spread. Through the soldiers, the alien princess tried to end her life, but the human king stopped her. Some saw it as weakness. Others saw it as honor. But one thing was clear. This war was no longer just about power. Something had changed. And deep in her tent, the alien princess who had been sent to die took her first peaceful breath in years. She was still afraid. But for the first time, she hoped. The next morning, dark clouds hung low over the human camp. It wasn't the weather that made it feel heavy. It was the silence. Everyone was watching, waiting Princess Lazari. The alien girl once sent to die, now walked freely under heavy guard. Her silver skin shined faintly in the early light, and her long white hair moved with the wind like soft silk. She walked with her head down, but her steps were steady. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just followed orders quietly, like someone who didn't know if she was still alive. Or just forgotten. Inside the war tent, King Darien stared at the map before him. But he wasn't thinking about battle plans. He was thinking about her. "You made a mistake," General Kale said sharply. "She should have been executed the moment she arrived." "And if I had," Darien asked, "we would have sent a message. A strong one." Darien slammed his hand on the table. "No, that's not strength. That's fear." The room went quiet. "She is just a girl," he added. "She doesn't have blood on her hands." Kale stepped forward. "That girl is the daughter of the Emperor who slaughtered millions of humans. Her kind burns colonies for sport. She might be soft on the outside, but she's still one of them." Darien didn't respond. He knew Kale wasn't completely wrong. But something in Lisari's eyes haunted him. Not danger, not lies, but loneliness. Deep, ancient loneliness. Later that day, Lisari was asked to help in the infirmary. She didn't protest inside the medical tent. Wounded soldiers groaned and bled. Human nurses looked at her with cold eyes, but Darien had ordered them not to harm her. So, they handed her a rag and pointed at a wounded young man with a missing arm. Lisari knelt beside him and began wiping the blood from his face. He stared at her, confused. "You're not afraid of me?" she asked softly. He blinked. "You're the princess?" She nodded. "I should hate you," he muttered. "Then hate me," she whispered, her voice barely shaking. But instead, he turned his head and said, "You clean better than the others." She smiled just a little. It faded quickly. At night, Darien found himself walking near the guard tents. He didn't expect to see Lisari sitting near the fire alone. She was holding a piece of paper, something folded many times. When she saw him, she quickly hid it. "What is that?" he asked. "A memory," she said. He sat down beside her, across the fire. She hesitated, then slowly unfolded it. It was a drawing, a childish one. A picture of her as a child, standing beside a tall woman in royal armor. "My mother," she explained. Before she died, Akirian said nothing. He just watched her. "I was the youngest daughter," she continued. "My sisters were strong, ruthless. I liked to paint. I liked books. I hated war. Then why did they send you here? They said I was a waste, that I brought shame to the empire. So, they wrapped it in pretty words, called it a peace offering, but I knew the truth." Darien's hands tightened into fists. "You still carry their name," he said. Lys, sorry, shook her head. "Not for long." She stood up slowly and looked at him. "May I ask something, Your Majesty?" "You may. If I die here, will someone remember me as more than a tool?" Darien looked at her long and hard. "I already do." That same night, a scream ripped through the camp. Guards rushed toward one of the tents Lysari's sleeping quarters. Darien got there first. Sword drawn, inside. A man in black armor was holding a dagger over Lysari's bed. But the bed was empty. The assassin turned and was tackled by a guard, poisoned blade. Someone shouted, "Lys." Sorry stepped out from behind a curtain, eyes wide with fear. He came through the back. Darien stormed forward. "Who sent you?" The assassin spat. "Your enemies? No, hers." Gasps filled the tent. He was Zelyari, One guard said, "Her own people want her dead." Another whispered. Darian looked at her, her hands shaking, her eyes full of tears. She refused to let fall. "I told you," she whispered. "I was sent to die." By morning, everything had changed. Now, the soldiers looked at her differently. Some still glared in hate, but others began to wonder, what kind of people betray their own daughter? What kind of king protects her? And most importantly, what kind of girl survives betrayal from both enemies and family without losing her soul? Princess Lasari wasn't just the gift no one wanted anymore. She was something else now, and King Darian had a choice to make. Let her be a symbol of shame, a new symbol of hope. The camp woke slowly the next day. But something had changed. Whispers filled the cold morning air like fog. The assassin was Zelyari. She didn't scream. She stayed quiet, calm. She knew it would happen. The soldiers no longer saw Lasari as a prisoner or just some alien gift. Now, they saw her as a girl marked for death by her own people. Some still didn't trust her, but many felt something new. Pity and a little respect. Princess Lasari sat alone outside the command tent, her hands folded in her lap. Her white hair blew gently in the breeze, and a small cut on her cheek was the only sign of last night's attack. King Darian stepped out and stood in front of her. "You should have cried," he said quietly. "You were almost killed." "I've cried enough for 1,000 nights," she replied softly. Darian knelt beside her. "Your own people sent a killer after you." "Why? They don't want peace," she whispered. "They never did. I was only useful as a tool. If I'm dead, they can say they offered peace. But the humans betrayed it." Darian frowned. "So if we had killed you, they'd use that as an excuse for war." Lasari nodded. That was the plan. Later that day, Darian called a meeting of his high command. "She stays," he said firmly. General Kale growled. "This is madness. We already stopped one assassin. How many more will come?" Darian pointed at the map. This war was never just about weapons or soldiers. About hearts. If we kill a girl who begged for peace, we lose more than honor. Another officer leaned in. If we protect her, we show we're better than they are. Arian's eyes turned cold. And if they want to silence her, they'll have to come through me. That evening, Lasari went to the medical tent again. The young soldier she'd cleaned days before was sitting up now, laughing weakly with two others. When he saw her, he waved her over. "You're back," he said. "I still remember how to clean wounds," she smiled. One of the other soldiers grunted. "You're brave for an alien." Lasari paused. "I wasn't always brave." She pulled her sleeve down. The soldiers froze. Her silver arm was covered in faded scars. Not from war, from bindings, from whips. "These were not made by your people," she said quietly. "They were made by mine." No one spoke. "I was punished for refusing to watch a slave be executed. I was punished again for hiding a book of human poetry. And when I tried to speak for peace," Shu pulled the collar of her dress down slightly to show a scar near her shoulder. "Angry, still. Healing. They said I spoke like a coward, like a human. So they gave me to you." The tent went completely silent. The soldier she helped earlier looked at her, wide-eyed. "You're one of us now," she smiled softly. "Maybe I've always been." That night, Darian invited her to a quiet dinner in his tent. "I heard about what you shared," he said. "They need to know the truth," she replied. Darian stared into the fire. "Your words are stronger than many swords." She shook her head. "Words didn't save my mother." He looked up. "She tried to make peace once too. She died from poison." Darian sat back, his jaw tight. You and I are alike, Lisari, he said. She raised an eyebrow. How so? We were both given power we never wanted, and asked to destroy people we never hated. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Lisari said, You are the first man to call me by name, without spitting it. Darien chuckled. And you're the first alien to clean blood off my men and listen more than speak. She reached into her robes and took out something small, a pendant, a crystal shaped like a teardrop. What is it? Darien asked. A family crest, she said. But it burns when touched by betrayal. She handed it to him. He held it. No burn. Lisari smiled. It knows the truth. You are not my enemy. In the distance, a secret transmission buzzed to life. In a hidden cave, two alien figures stood watching a hologram of Lisari in the camp. She is alive. One asked in shock. The other's eyes narrowed. Yes, and she has not been silenced. Then the humans must be warned. She is not weak. No, the second one replied. She's becoming something dangerous. A symbol. Adi. Human camp Lisari looked up at the stars. Once, they had felt cold and far away. Now, she wondered. Could they lead somewhere new? Darien stood beside her. Your people will come again, he said. She nodded. Yes. But next time, they may come for war. Darien looked at her, eyes calm. Then, let them come. I'll stand between you and every blade. The camp was no longer just a place for soldiers. It had become something else. Some called it a symbol of hope. Others called it a ticking bomb. And at the center of it all was one quiet girl, the alien princess once meant to die. Now she walked freely. Soldiers no longer spat at her. Some even nodded when she passed. She had earned that respect, not by fighting, but by surviving. Still, not everyone accepted her, especially the nobles. Lord Renaer, one of King Darien's oldest political allies, arrived at the camp on a silver hovercraft, dressed in dark blue robes and wearing gold-trimmed armor. He stepped down with a sneer on his face. You allow her to walk among humans, he said coldly, staring at Lisari. Darien stood tall. She's done nothing to harm us. She's done nothing because she's waiting. Spies work in silence. She has no army, no weapons, no friends left on her side. Lord Renaer's voice dropped lower. And yet your men speak of her like she's some queen. Darien frowned. They speak of her because she has earned it. By washing wounds, Renaer snapped. Or by crawling into your bed, Your Majesty. Darien's fist slammed into the table. Say that again, your judgment is failing, Renaer said calmly. And I'm not the only one who thinks. So, that evening, a group of nobles and generals met in secret. Their voices were low, angry. She's twisting his mind. He sees her as more than just a guest. That's dangerous. If we wait too long, she'll become untouchable. A final voice said something cold. Then we must force the king to choose his crown, or the alien girl. The next morning, Lisari was summoned to the central hall. She came quietly. As always, dressed simply with her long hair tied back. Her glowing eyes looked calm, but inside her chest, her heart beat fast. A trial had been set. Not a real one. Not by law, but a political trap. Lord Renaer stood beside three other nobles. Princess Lisari, he said, loud enough for the entire camp to hear. We question your presence here. Lisari said nothing. We question your intentions. Still, silence. And we question the king's wisdom in keeping you alive. This time she looked up. I did not ask to be kept alive, she said quietly, but I thank him for doing so. Then leave, one of the nobles said. If you truly care for peace, walk away from here and never return. Lisari bowed her head. If that is the king's wish, I will go. A hush fell over the crowd. All eyes turned to King Darien. He stood slowly, looking at each of his advisors, then at Lys Sari. Then he said, loud and clear, no. Gasps, murmurs. She stays. Darien continued. As long as I am king, no guest of mine will be handed over to murderers. Renar stepped forward, furious. Then you risk civil war. Darien turned to the crowd. Then let them come for me. After the gathering ended, Lasari stood outside the king's tent. You should have let me go, she said softly, and let them win. Darien asked, I am not worth your throne. Darien stepped closer. You are worth more than their hate. She looked away. They say things about us, about me and you. He raised an eyebrow. Do you care what they say? She hesitated. Then shook her head. No. A long silence passed between them. Then Darien added, but I care if you're safe. That night, Lasari sat alone by the campfire. Her thoughts were heavy. She knew this couldn't last. Her presence was splitting the kingdom. The longer she stayed, the more danger Darien would face. She had no power, no army, no name left to protect her, but she had something new. Loyalty, not from her people, but from a human king, who saw her not as a weapon, but as a person. Late that night, she made a decision. She dressed in her royal robes, silver and blue, embroidered, with the symbols of her lost house. Then she walked to Darien's tent. The guards moved aside without question. Inside, the king looked surprised to see her dressed that way. Is something wrong? He asked. She knelt. He stepped back. What are you doing? I was sent here to die, she said, her voice soft. But you gave me a life. Darien looked at her carefully. Sorry, you treated me as more than a tool, more than an enemy. You saw me. Kay didn't speak. I came to offer myself to you, not as a gift of war, but by my own choice. She looked up. I have nothing left, no title, no family. But if you would take me, I would be yours. Darien stared at her. Then he walked forward and knelt beside her. I don't want a servant, he said. I want a partner. He reached for a simple crown, not of gold, but of leather and silver thread, a soldier's crown, and placed it in her hands. Then rise Lazari, he said, not as a prisoner, but as queen. The stars were bright that night, brighter than usual, like they were watching. The camp was quiet, but not asleep. Everyone had heard about what happened inside the king's tent. No one dared speak it aloud. But the whispers were everywhere. She offered herself to him. Did he accept? What happens now? Inside the tent, everything had changed. Lysari stood beside the king, not behind him, not beneath him. She wore no chains now, no simple clothes. Just the royal robes of her forgotten house, stitched with symbols from a family that abandoned her. But when Darien placed the soldier's crown in her hands and said, Rise Lysari, not as a prisoner, but as queen, she didn't rise right away. She had bowed all her life before proud generals, cruel sisters, cold kings. But now, she knelt not in fear, not because someone told her to, but because she chose to. And that changed everything. I've never worn a crown, Lysari said softly, looking at the silver and leather piece in her hands. It's lighter than most. Darien smiled. It was mine, before the war made me king. Then I don't deserve it. You do, he said, firm, more than you know. She looked into his eyes. Then place it on my head. Not as a trophy, but as a vow. Darien stood, walked behind her, and slowly placed the crown upon her white hair. The firelight flickered across her silver skin. You are queen, he said, not by blood, not by war, but by choice. The next morning, chaos returned. Lord Renaer and several nobles stormed into the court tent. "You crowned her, Renaer," shouted Darien, didn't flinch. "She is no longer a guest. She is no longer a prisoner. She is my queen. She is not human," Renaer snapped. "You shame every fallen soldier with this insult. She has done more for our people than most nobles ever have," Darien replied. The crowd murmured. Some agreed. Others looked angry. Renaer pointed his finger. "If you marry her, you split the realm. The council will never accept this." "Then the council must learn what unity truly means," Darien said calmly. Outside, Lysari walked through the camp as whispers followed her. Some bowed, some glared, but when she stepped into the infirmary and knelt beside a wounded soldier against still cleaning wounds, still working quietly, the room fell silent. One nurse stepped forward. "Your Highness, you shouldn't do this anymore." "I'm not too royal to care for others," Lysari said gently. "I've lived in dirt. I've bled like anyone. A crown doesn't change that." The nurse slowly smiled, and word spread. Again, the alien queen still cleans wounds. She knelt beside the broken again. Maybe she's not like the others. That night, Darien found her standing near the edge of the cliff, overlooking the mountains. "The world is changing," she said without turning. "It is," he replied. She looked at the stars. "Do you ever wonder if we've done the right thing every day?" Lysari turned to him. "They will come, my people. They will not accept this." "I'm counting on it," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "You want them to come?" "Yes," he nodded. "Because when they arrive, they won't find a broken girl waiting to die. They'll find a queen." Lysari lowered her gaze. "I'm not ready to fight them. You won't have to. You won't stand alone." That same night, in a far-off Zelyar warship orbiting the border, a general watched the news from the human camp. The image showed Lysari standing beside King Darien, wearing the human crown. Wearing pride. "Is this real?" the general asked. It was confirmed by 3 spies, an officer said. "She now rules beside the human king." The general's eyes narrowed. "Then she is more dangerous than we feared." "Do we prepare for war?" "No," the general said darkly. "We prepare for judgment." Back in the human camp, Darien summoned his advisors. "This is no longer about survival," he said. "It's about what kind of future we build." "Some will call you a traitor," his advisor said. "I'm not afraid of traitors," Darien replied. "I'm afraid of silence, of doing nothing while someone brave stands alone." Lysari entered the tent. "I will speak," she said. "To your people, to mine. Let them hear me." Darien looked at her with pride. "Then let the stars carry your voice." The next day, a message was broadcast from the human command. Lysari stood before the cameras, her face calm and firm. "I am Lysari, once a daughter of the Zelyari Empire, now queen of a world that taught me mercy." She looked into the lens. "To my people, you tried to silence me, but I still live. You tried to break me, but I still stand. You threw me away, but I was found." She placed her hand on her chest. "And now, I speak not for war, but for unity." In that moment, across both empires, human and Zelyari people stared at their screens. Some in shock, some in anger, some in quiet awe. A queen had risen, not by blood, but by choice. A single message spread like wildfire through the stars. The alien princess is now the human king's queen. Some called it blasphemy, some called it betrayal, and some called it hope. But for the Zelyari Empire, it was war. Inside the high chamber of the Zelyari capital, Emperor Vakar slammed his hand down on the table. His face, marked by age and power, was twisted in fury. "She has humiliated us," he shouted. "She wears a human crown. She speaks in their tongue." A group of generals stood silently. Only one dared speak. She sent a message, "My emperor, not of rebellion, but of peace." Hfycodexar growled, "There is no peace with the filth of earth. My daughter has become a symbol, not of strength, but of shame." One of his daughters, Lazari's older sister, General Velith, stepped forward. "Then let me correct her mistake." The room fell quiet. "I will go to the humans myself," Velith continued. "Not with gifts, but with fire." 3 days later, massive alien ships appeared at the edge of human territory, not firing. Not yet, but watching. Waiting. Darion stood at the war table in his command tent, eyes focused. "They're testing us," he said. His advisor nodded. "There." Waiting for a signal from her. Lazari entered the room wearing her silver-blue robes, her head high. "They will not wait long," she said. "My sister is known for sharp blades and short tempers. Will she listen to you?" Darion asked. "She never listened to anyone," Lazari said quietly. "But she fears only one thing, losing the people's favor." Darion looked at her. "Then maybe we make her look like the villain, by choosing peace." A plan was formed. Lazari would go to the border. Not with guards, not with weapons, but with words. And beside her, Darion would stand. The next day, on neutral ground between both armies, a temporary stage was built from steel plates and makeshift banners. The two leaders stood side by side, one human king, one alien queen. Facing them was General Velith, armored in red and black, her face cold and sharp. Behind her, hundreds of elite Zelye warriors stood ready for battle. "You shame our blood," Velith said to Lazari. "You kneel before our enemy." Lazari stepped forward. "I didn't kneel. I chose love over hate. Life over pride." Velith scoffed. "Love? What a weak excuse." Darion spoke now. Weak. She faced death, exile, and betrayal. She stood before soldiers who hated her and still saved their lives. "That is not weakness. She is no longer Zelyari," Velith said. "And you, human, will never be our king." Darion smiled calmly. "Good. I don't want your throne. I want your peace." Velith raised her hand, signaling her troops. Lazari's voice rang out. "You attack. You do not strike down humans. You strike your own blood, your own sister. You will not be heroes. You will be monsters." A hush fell. "Or," she said, stepping closer, "you could let go of war. Just once. Let us build something better." Velith's hand trembled. "Offer you something greater than power," Lazari said. "A future?" Velith growled. "And what would that future look like?" Darion stepped beside Lazari. "It starts with a union, not of blood, not of choice." He looked at Lazari. "If you will have me, not as a king, but as a man, I ask you, in front of 2 empires, will you marry me?" Everyone froze. Even Velith.lys. Sorry single quotes as breath caught in her chest. Her glowing blue eyes searched his face. There was no trick. No political move. Just truth. "I came here to die," she said softly. "But you lived," Darion whispered. She smiled, gentle. "Sure, then yes. I will." A loud gasp spread through both armies. Velith stared at them, speechless, then turned sharply. "Fall back," she barked. "This is not our fight anymore." Hours later, in the human camp, soldiers cheered, danced, and sang. But inside Darion's private tent, the mood was quiet. Lazari stood near the window. her hands gently touching the old soldier's crown that still rested on her head. "You knew this would happen," she said. Darian chuckled. "No, I just hoped." She turned to him. "Do you think they'll ever accept me as queen?" "Not all," he admitted. "But that's how history starts, with one, then another." She walked to him and rested her forehead against his chest. "I never thought I'd find peace inside a war." Darian held her gently. "And I never thought I'd find love inside an enemy." Far away, in the shadows of the Zelyari Empire, others watched. Whispers filled the chambers of power. The bloodline is broken. Or maybe it's stronger than ever. The sun rose slowly, casting golden light across the camp. But this was no longer a battlefield. It was now a place of history. The tents had been replaced by silk banners. The ground, once soaked in blood, was now covered in flowers, laid down by soldiers both human and alien. Today was not a day of war. It was a day of union. Inside, it's a large ceremonial hall built in just 5 days. Guests from across the galaxy had arrived. Human generals in fine dress uniforms stood beside alien diplomats, wearing glowing robes. Everyone was quiet. Waiting at the far end of the hall stood King Darian, wearing armor polished to a shine, his crown resting proudly on his head. But this time, he was not a warlord. He was a groom. His eyes turned to the doorway, and then she entered. Lysari walked slowly, her long silver dress glowing faintly in the light. Her white hair was braided with blue crystals, and her skin shimmered like moonlight dot. The crown of both worlds, half human metal, half alien crystal, rested gently on her head. Everyone stood. No one spoke. Even those who once called her enemy now stared in quiet awe. She walked past soldiers who once doubted her, nobles who once demanded her death, generals who once feared her bloodline, and she walked with pride because today she was not a gift, not a symbol, not a tool. She was a queen, by choice, by heart. Darian took her hand. His fingers were rough from war. Hers were scarred from survival. Yet together, they felt soft. Complete, the High Chancellor of the Union stepped forward. "Do you come here? Not as rulers, but as people. To stand beside each other in truth, in peace, and in purpose." Darian nodded. "I do." Lysari smiled. "I do." "Then by the law of 2 worlds, and the will of 2 hearts, you are now one." The hall erupted in applause, and when Darian leaned in and kissed her, Lysari felt for the first time free. Outside, crowds cheered. Screens across Earth and the Zelyar Empire broadcast the ceremony. Some wept, some cheered, some still disagreed, but no one could deny it anymore. A human king had married an alien queen. A war had ended with a kiss, and history had changed forever. Later that evening, as the stars filled the sky again, Lysari stood on the balcony of the high tower. She looked down at the camp, now filled with lights, music, laughter, but she still felt quiet. Darian stepped beside her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. I keep waiting to wake up." He smiled. "If this is a dream, I hope we never wake." She turned to him. "Do you think they'll ever forgive me, my people?" Darian looked out into the dark horizon. Not all at once. But someday, a little Zelyari girl will look up at the stars, and she'll hear your story, and she'll smile. Lysari's eyes shimmered. "And maybe a human boy will ask if love can happen between stars." He laughed. "It already has." Suddenly, a guard rushed into the room. "Forgive the interruption, Your Majesties. A guest has arrived." Darian frowned. At this hour, she came alone. "She requests to speak only with the queen." Lysari's expression changed. "Who is she?" she said. "She is your sister." In the quiet gardens behind the tower, Lasari stood alone. From the shadows stepped General Velith, her older sister, once her enemy, now wearing no armor. Just a simple black cloak. "You came," Lasari whispered. Velith stared at her. "I did not come for peace. I came for truth." Lasari's voice was calm. "Then speak it." "I hated you," Velith said, "not for being weak, but for being strong in ways I could never be." Lasari said nothing. "You made the choice I could not. You stood before 2 armies and spoke of love. You shamed me. I didn't mean to," Lasari replied. "But you did," Velith said. "And now, I wonder if you were right." She stepped forward and handed her something small, a blade. But the handle was wrapped in blue ribbon. "Our mother's dagger," Lasari whispered. "She wanted you to have it," Velith said. "But father gave it to me. I no longer deserve it." Lasari took it gently, her fingers trembling. "I am not here to kneel," Velith said. "But I am here to begin." Lasari nodded. "That's all I ever wanted." That night, as the stars shined over the camp, music played long into the night. Darian and Lasari danced with their people, human and alien, together. No walls, no chains, no war, just stories, just new beginnings. Years later, children would read about the war that ended with a marriage, about a girl sent to die, who became a queen, about a king who saw more than blood, and in both histories, human and alien. Same words were written. She knelt once, not to surrender, but to rise.